Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for being here again this week. And this week, we're talking about quite the subject, unfortunately, that I have a lot of experience with, not because I studied it, but because I lived it, the black hole of divorce. And we have an expert here to come and talk with us about, that beautiful subject. Zena, how are you?
I'm good. Caroline, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. So, it's quite the subject to be an expert in because I guess that we always see that subject as very negative, but for some people it's actually positive. And I love the way you approach it because you chose to approach it in the least negative way possible. So talk to us about what brought you to working with that subject. Because you're a happily married woman, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm a happily married woman, yeah.
Have you ever been divorced?
I've never been divorced. And to tell you the truth, at the beginning, I felt a little bit self-conscious about the fact that I'm not divorced and I'm helping all these people get divorced. And it's kind of like, people expect you to have gone through it for you to understand their pain and understand all the elements that come with it. But I am a good listener. I'm very empathetic, and the way I see divorce is, it's never a happy thing. It's never, this is a triumph. I'm at the end of it. You see those little posts on social media, and I don't actually like them. Oh, I'm going to go and celebrate because I just signed my divorce papers. I think there's always pain with divorce, even if you're the one who chose it. But how I see it is like any adversity in life, you go through it. If you're really focused, you grow from it, you learn things, you become a better person. 100%. You will always learn things as you're moving through the divorce process. And if you're really tuned in to what's going on, to your emotions, to your relationship with yourself, with your kids, even with your ex, with your friends, sometimes that shifts and changes as you go through it and as you move from one stage to another. So to me, it is a way for us to be better, in a sense, better people, better listeners, better human beings, and when they go through divorce, they can connect to others in a much different way.
Yeah, and I think, though, that you said a very key point here, is that it can be a growth experience if you actually take the time to analyze really what happened, what was your part of responsibility in there, because I don't believe that any divorce is only one's fault. There's, it's a problem with the relationship. So because I'm in the process of my second divorce. So we're not divorcing yet because we're still living together. I know it's weird, but we chose to co-parent together. So we're still living together. We haven't do any procedures for the divorce, but we've been separated for 4 years. And it's funny because it's my second one. And after the first one, I chose to walk away, blame most of it on the other one, and, take little responsibilities here and there, but not really dive in. And I was younger, I was 28, 29. Not that age is an excuse, but the key point that you said is that I did not analyze. I did not take responsibility. I didn't look at my part in it. And I went on pretty much to repeat the same thing in my second marriage. So, and now I get why there's some people that have 5, 6, 7 divorces. It's because they don't learn. They don't stop and learn. So what would you say that is important to look at when you're actually going through a divorce?
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. I thank you for being open, and I think it's important for people to know that whatever is happening with them is not happening to them alone. There are hundreds of people getting divorced, and you're right. What distinguishes quote unquote good divorce with a not so good divorce is how you see the experience, and how you whether you commit to looking inwards and even outwards, like how am I showing up, how am I communicating, and doing it better the next time. So your question was, what can people learn? What can people learn from a divorce?
Yeah, because, I think that we all go through, depending on why the divorce is happening, we all go through anger, we all go through acceptance of like losing something, because whether you won the divorce or not, you said it, you're losing something. But within that, like, what can you do for yourself step by step to be like, yeah, I should learn from that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's where it starts, with oneself. And I know that it's really hard to look inwards when you just cannot stand the other person. They're making you angry. They're causing a lot of problems and you see it. But to pause I always tell you, pause, sit there by yourself. Don't talk it out with your friend at the beginning. Like talk to yourself and go inwards and be like, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Understand why is it that you're angry at what they're doing? You know what I mean? Like sometimes we get angry at like, oh, like he never put away the dishes, or, oh, that thing, like every time he says this, it just drives me crazy. Something like flips in me and I don't know why. So to recognize, to kind of be an observer and recognize, oh, like every time he or she does that, I feel this way. Okay, well, this reaction is not feeling good. So why? And kind of being curious about your feelings. And also, sometimes you said, you talked you asked me about this at the beginning, whether I've been divorced. No, but I work very, very hard on my relationship. And so sometimes when my husband and I are having a conflict or an argument, I kind of like, I imagine my part of me stepping away. I'm kind of watching. And then I go to my room and I think about what was said and how I react. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I kind of get why he might think this way, or yes, I was kind of mean here. And of course, you're not denying all the things that they're doing and kind of their role in it, but it's recognizing that it's not just them, I think frees you up a bit. And so once you understand all these triggers and what causes them, then the next time you look for someone, or the next time you're talking to, like, the relationship is over and now you're looking for someone new, you want to really be aware of these things and maybe even tell them, hey, like these things tick me off, or I'm really sensitive around these things, or whatever the case may be. Then you're a better partner then.
I'm laughing because I would probably be with my next, like, I'm very sensitive to breathing, because right now, point, like he breathes and you're like,
yeah.
He's so loud. I'm joking here, but it's important to know what triggers you. And I think it's taking responsibility. And, that brings us actually to what our subject is. It's that you're helping people go through peaceful divorces. And I think that if you can't even stop and take some kind of responsibility for what happened, you will go into it fighting it to the bone. And that's when you hear, like, I want to put him in the street, and I'm going to clean him, or her, whatever, the partner. But who really gains with cleaning someone in there, Zena? Because you've seen it happening over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, nobody gains. Nobody gains from years of fighting in court. Nobody gains from feeling so little, having a judge telling them how to run their lives and how to parent, and when they get to spend time with their kids, and what child support they must pay. Otherwise, they're going to, maintenance enforcement or whatever it may be in a specific province. But it's belittling, and it doesn't feel good. I mean, sometimes it feels good to just like, you're mad and you're sending that nasty email and you hit the send button and you feel like, a winner. But then trust me, a few minutes later, and I don't know, Caroline, if you have experience with that, you probably go, maybe I shouldn't have, or now
Yeah,
they're going to fight back, or what about?
actually, I have too much experience there as well. Sending
Yeah,
texts that I shouldn't have, or
yeah.
so at some point, I came up with a beautiful, like an amazing tactic, and I'm going to share it with people. Create a ghost friend. So a ghost email, and send your emails there. And you know what?
Oh.
24 or 48 hours. And if it's worth it, then send it to the person. But yes, definitely the rule of 24 to 48 hours is so crucial. But when we're all emotionally, and I'm very emotional and passionate, so it's like when you say something, I want to say yesterday,
Yeah.
But, first of all, emails and texts never relay really what you want to say. And second of all, I feel like, because I'm becoming an expert at divorce as well, I feel like when you're going through these things, you also expect the person to have a reaction. There's a reaction you want to trigger. And quite often we use a negative something like insulting or leaving or hurting because we want them to respond in a way, like, no, please don't go, or I'm sorry. But they don't perceive it like that because we're not clear. We don't say our expectations. And, how many books are there on that? Like men are from one planet and women from the other. But it's that as well, like in separation and divorce. If, what I've learned is that communication face to face or over the phone is the best, because the rest you can lose big by just assuming the other one understands. And what I love about what you do is that you take couples when they're in that place, if they're open enough to come and see you and help them navigate, So what kind of navigation are you helping them with?
I love it. It's such a rewarding work when, so I'm a mediator and a paralegal. The mediation work that I do, people come in angry at one another, but at least they have to be amicable enough to want to work with me. So they don't necessarily have to see eye to eye, but they both agree they want to avoid lawyers and they want to avoid courts and they want to do things amicable. So that in itself starts us off to a great head start, because the three of us want the same thing. We want them to stay away from lawyers and lawyer costs and all that and conflict. So they come in and I always encourage them, put everything out on the table. You have me. I'm your support. I am not gonna. I know, like most people are surprised by what I say, because I truly want them to talk about it, and I want them to talk about it there in the mediation because they have me. Because I'm going to hold them away from one another, but because I want to make sure that they both understand each other. And there's a skill that comes with it, and there's a little bit of science too. Like the more I learn about mediation, negotiation, things to say, how to get the one person to speak out their truth while the other person actually listens without being defensive. I think it comes down to being authentic, encouraging them to being authentic, and to be really clear on what goal we have for that day. And I always say to them, look, what happened in the past happened. If you really need to talk about it, we can, but I am not going to allow you to spend too much time there, because right now you're here and we want to spend our energy on constructing the future in a way that it works for you, and it's never perfect. don't ever think, you come in and you get everything you want, but this is why you're here, so that you can negotiate something that you would feel okay with once you walk out the door.
Yeah, I have so many questions, but one of them is, did it ever happen to you that a mediation session ended up into like, no, we're getting back together?
Yeah. So one, and not that they didn't actually say it, but I felt that this is what's going on. Usually in a mediation, at the end of the mediation, because mediation is hard work. It's hard work for the mediator. It's hard work for the parties themselves. And so usually by the end of the mediation, when people have gone through their assets or decided what they want to do with the kids, it's so much work, and it's like you've ran, half a day and you're just exhausted, but you got to your destination and you're exhausted, but you're happy. So that's what most people feel at the end of a good mediation, where they've came to a resolution and they've decided on things. But this specific couple, it did not look like that's where they're at or that's their feeling. Even though they decided on what they want to do with their child, they had a lot of assets to deal with, and they had decided on what to do with all of them, how they're gonna divide them up. But at the end of it, the wife kind of just stormed out the door, and the husband just sat there and just kind of stared out the window. And I'm like, this is not, doesn't seem like, the regular, okay, thank God we're done with this mediation situation. So I emailed them later, and I asked if this is, I was like transparent with them. First, I was like, I don't know. They came to me for divorce, and now I'm suggesting that maybe this is not the thing for them. So I called them later, and I said, I told them exactly what I just said. I felt that this was not something that you guys were happy with, that made you feel comfortable or confident, that these are the right decisions for you right now. Would you consider reassessing? I'll offer a couple hours of my time for free, because I didn't want them to have any reason to say no. And let's discuss this and see if this is something that you guys want to consider, perhaps trying to be together again. And so they said yes, and they came back and we talked about it, and they said, okay, we're going to try for another 6 months, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, we'll come back to you. So we're kind of in that 6 months period now, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so we'll bring you back when their time is over.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to point out is that I think you said one crucial word, in all of this. And I think that that's the devil attacking us. It's being humble. So it's our ego quite often in a divorce that is so damaged, like whether you've been cheated on, whether the other person met someone else after, or even if it's just like a split because it's not working out together anymore. Most people have assets and kids, so the ego really gets in there, because I know that I didn't want to give away my kids a week on two, so I basically gave all of the financial to the first husband, and I was like, I just want the kids. So it was amicable because I gave everything up,
right?
But I was comfortable with that decision, and the fact is, like, now my kids are 21 and 23. We always had a good relationship. We co-parented. So ultimately, like, I failed my marriages, but I succeeded my divorces. There's something to be said there.
Nice. Yeah.
But a big part is because I always prioritized my kids. But to do that, you really need to move your ego out of the way, and you need to move your personal desires and wants out of the way as well. Because, it's like I've been co-parenting for 4 years. So yes, I had to give up some other things to give that situation to my younger daughter. And I'm not saying I'm better than anyone. I'm just saying, it's really because I consciously didn't let my ego take over me. Because like I said, I'm a passionate person. And when I go for something, I go for it. So I would have been the one like cleaning cleaning him out, like not even underwear would have been left. You can't do that because in the end, like when you do that, it's really lawyers that make the money. And in the end, it's your kids that, you know, you will meet someone else one day. Your kids won't have another mom or dad.
100%. 100%. Very well said.
Yeah. And the one big thing too is, you know, what always frustrates me, because I've seen friends going through it and spending tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, this is kind of silly, because there's like very clear laws when you're married that financial is boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. You know, talk a bit about that. Like, how much can you deviate from the law if you choose to go like the super expensive road and go to court?
Yeah, it's like they're paying to fight. They're paying to fight, because I tell people they can have the same outcome, exactly the same, if not even better, after like a 2-session mediation that they would have in a 3-year litigation. And I'm not making this up. It's a fact. I worked in the divorce section for a long time in the Calgary courts. I was a supervisor and later a manager. And I've seen all the ugliness. I've seen the multiple applications over simple things. And I've seen people suffer for 3-4 years to sell a house. Like, I've seen it all. And the differentiator between that and someone else who just decides, okay, you know what, let's sell the house. Let's divide it 40-60, not 50-50, because that seems fair to us. And doing it, you know, at the kitchen table or in a mediation session, it's true. It happens. And, you know, maybe $60,000 here versus $200 there. You're right. Like, it's the law, the matrimonial law is kind of the broad understanding and the application of it is more or less 50-50. But then it also gives parties the option to do what works for their family, and it's very fluid that way. So it's, you know, I always tell people, figure out what could 6 months down the road after separation look like to you, and work backwards from there. Like, what do you need to feel secure, safe, financially stable, for your kids to be comfortable, and then make your agreements and decisions today based on that, as opposed to, you know, no, he gets only half the house, so I'm not giving up not even 0.5%, and that I'm going to fight to the end of it just over this 0.5%, just because. Principle. Like, that's another word that gets thrown around. It's the principle. What is that? Like, what does it mean? What does it entail? What does it tell you? It shouldn't be the principle. It should be my needs, my kids' needs, our life, our stability, right?
It's my ego, really. I find that, you know, over the years, I think it's that word really comes. Yeah. That's why you said, when you're humble enough to say, we can go to a mediator. Yeah. And there's like so much money that can be saved there as well. So you were in court and you processed like tons of divorces and you saw the long battles and everything. And one day you said, no, I'm starting my own business because I want to help people go through that, you know, in a way less expensive manner. So how did that go?
So I worked at the divorce section for close to 10 years, and I got my mediation certificate during that time. And so I decided to leave the courthouse and start my own company helping people divorce, because I've seen all the messiness and the confusion that comes with each person hires their own lawyer and they fight it out. And honestly, a lot of times people don't want that, but they don't know any other option. As soon as someone throws the divorce word, one or both are going to pick up the phone, call the nearest lawyer, and start this, like you said, black hole of divorce, because they just don't know any better. So I knew that was happening, and I knew that people did not know that there are options where you don't have to hire a lawyer, you don't have to do it through courts. You can, in the end, there are certain documents that needs to be filed in court, but you can do the bulk of the work and all the agreements outside court. So I saw all these issues, and while working at the courthouse, I would get calls from the public saying things like, I hired my lawyer 3 years ago, and I don't know where we're at. I don't know if we filed anything. I don't know if we've made any headway. And I look up their file, and there's the first document filed, 2.5 years ago, and that's it. And they're still, paying the lawyer to litigate for them. So I wanted to give people that other option where you're not representing yourself and you're not hiring a lawyer, you're hiring an experienced paralegal and a mediator who can walk you through the process with the least amount of pain and cost and just liability on your life and your relationship.
Yeah, and you have way less to lose when you go down that route, because assuming it wouldn't work with you, which it doesn't happen because you're amazing at what you do, but assuming it doesn't work, then you go to court. You're going to end up in the same place.
Yeah.
I find that for having been there, also especially when there's kids, and I'm talking about when there's kids because I don't know the other option of not having kids. But yes, when that word comes, when one of the two throws it, you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How am I going to get through that? Because it's like, I think we were raised it's a big mystical thing that you need lawyers to actually go and do it for you. But you had your relationship, you can also end your relationship. So it's not, the need is not there, specifically. It's just because I think it's the most emotional and weak state that we are in, whether you chose or not. If you chose your divorce, you're breaking your family. If it's happening to you, well, it's happening to you. Either or, it's almost like there's no win situation. So because it's a very emotional and vulnerable place, that's why we turn to others. But how do people reach mediators like you?
We are everywhere. Just look us up. And I think mediators are not very good at marketing themselves. I think I do a fair job. I want people to know about this option, and I'm everywhere talking on podcasts and making this common knowledge for people. But mediators are everywhere. Mediators, their main focus is the people and their kids, their well-being. They're not thinking so much about the legalities and you're allowed this and you're not allowed that. I mean, these things are important. You need to know your legal rights, but you'll find a lot of times you can just go have a consult with a lawyer, tell them what your situation is, get legal advice from them, and then decide with your ex, let's hire a mediator. And so just look up family mediator or divorce mediator in your area, and you should get some options there. Interview your mediator. I think being a mediator and having come from that space and knowing a lot of other mediators, I would just say have a consult with the mediator that you have a couple at least that you can choose from, and ask them specific questions. One of the questions, a couple of questions I think are very important, especially in a divorce situation. One is, what's your style of mediation? Because some mediators, they focus a lot about the emotional well-being and the personal healing and the relationship, working out what could the relationship be post-divorce. Yes, you're divorcing, but how are you going to communicate with them? And this is important, but sometimes mediators will only focus on that as opposed to, well, there's all these other things that needs to be discussed, like child support, like spousal support, like division of assets, extracurricular activities. There's all these other things. And so you want the mediator to be really aware of what the needs of people going through divorce are, and what do they need to have in an agreement so that they can take that and file it with the courts or turn it into a legal document. Because that's always the next step. You don't want to do a whole bunch of work in mediation, but then not have any agreements or decisions to show for. So that would lead me to the second important question when you're meeting with a mediator, is to say, okay, once we have this agreement in place, what do you recommend? Like, where do we go from there? How do you make it legally binding? Because a mediated report or agreement is not legally binding. So it has to be turned into something that can be filed or can be processed in a way that it's your legally binding document for down the road. We do both at Trusted Divorce Services. We do the mediation and we do the legally binding documents, but 99% of mediators don't do that. So just be mindful of that and make sure you ask the questions. Some mediators have connections with lawyers who respect the mediation process and respect the agreements that come out of mediation, and so they would send clients to the lawyers afterwards, and lawyers can just finalize the document part. Other mediators don't have those relationships, so then people are kind of thrown out in the woods. They have to find their own lawyer. They go to find a lawyer. The lawyer will not uphold the mediated agreement. They want to start from nothing. And so it's like you've done so much work to get to this point, and now you're back at square one. So just be really mindful. Mediation is amazing, and I'm a big advocate of mediation and of family mediators, but just be careful in a divorce setting that you are going to get the end result that you need to move forward.
Thank you for that. That's two important questions. So what's your style and where do we go from here after? I'm taking mental notes. But I don't even know if I'm throwing you under the bus by asking you this question. And I'm pretty sure there's not a one fit answer, but how much can you foresee spending on a divorce if you do it very in an amicable way with a mediator versus what it could cost you going to court?
So it's around for at least under $5,000 for both parties. This is kind of like the general rule. At least under $5,000 for both parties with a mediator, and at least $15,000 each with lawyers.
So more than 3 times, like each, then it would be 6 times. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And, and that's the big part too, that we need to keep in mind is that when we're fighting over these assets, they're diluting.
Yes. You're sharing them 4 ways.
Yeah. So in the end, it's like you're losing and you're losing and you're losing. And unfortunately, what happened with the reason of divorcing will not get settled in a divorce. And quite often what I've seen, and I don't know if you've seen that in court, people are trying to settle the disagreements and what actually happened by going to court, because they think they will get to say everything and to expose what the other person did or whatever.
Yeah, and the judge will see it
about that.
Right. Yeah. And people who've never, and this is actually a really good tip for people who are kind of on the edge. Do I hire a lawyer? Do I go the mediation route? Do we do things like, which way do I go? Go to the courthouse in your jurisdiction and watch court proceedings, figure out what time it starts. Go and because the public is allowed to go in. Nobody is going to ask you anything. They're not going to care whether you have a hearing booked or not. You can go in and you can watch the proceedings and watch what happens. See how people are stressed and shaking before they go up to see a judge. And then they go up to speak out about their case. Say if they don't have a lawyer, they're self-representing. All of a sudden they just can't talk anymore. They're so stressed. They can't even talk and they can't process. You see a lot, like the judge will ask a question and the person will answer something like totally unrelated because they're just not thinking, they're so stressed. Or your lawyer speaking on your behalf and you're sitting there in the background and you have no control over what's being said or what's going to happen. So get a sense of what happens in court and, look at people's faces when they leave and see like what percentage are actually happy and like satisfied. Very low, honestly. It's a very stressful situation. As
I've
opposed
never
to,
heard someone like honestly saying, I won my divorce. Because usually it's after a long litigation and maybe they got in the end what they wanted, but there's no winners. There's just no winners. And you're diluting the family assets.
Mm-hmm.
And the stress is horrible. And I'm saying it because I went through it with a friend. And when I say she was there to settle, so her husband had cheated. She had hired a private investigator to, follow him and to have her proofs. And then when she had the pictures and her proofs, because we see that on TV, the movies, and you're like, I have the pictures, going to court and I'm going to clean him. The judge did not even want to know.
No, they don't care. It's irrelevant.
They'd be like, infidelity, that's your reason. Perfect. Move on. And she was trying and she wanted to deposit the documents and everything. And it's like, ma'am, you're not going to settle that here. We don't care what he did.
Yes.
For me, that was such an eye opener again about like the ego, or people want to go to court because they want to settle their relationship. That's not what's going to happen. So mediation is really the answer, the key answer. And then do you offer any services after for, following the couples if they need help?
Not yet, but I'm planning to. I just want to go back. Like I love your point, because I think it's worth mentioning again and making sure that listeners understand it. Because I hadn't heard it in this way before, that people think they're going to go to court and settle their relationship. It's so true that they're going to make it fair. They're going to, the fact that he cheated on her, now she's going to go show the judge all this evidence, and the judge's going to see through, all the truth behind it, and award her, yes, you suffered because he went and cheated on. Yes, I'm going to award you, I don't know, $10,000 because he went. It doesn't happen, and that's not the place. And do you really want to do that, or do you want to, again, back to our initial conversation where we talked about, well, what are you learning from this? How are you going to choose a partner later on? How are you going to love yourself enough to not let it happen to you, or watch out for it, or if you see evidence of anything happening, to actually face it as opposed to let it roll? You know what I mean? Like, it's all this, like, taking it back to, how do I want to show up differently moving on? And also, is it really important that I prove that he did what he did? How is that gonna serve me or the kids or him or whatever? Like, what is it gonna serve? He did it. What are you gonna do about it now? So I just wanted to really emphasize this point, because it's so true. There's no winners and losers in court.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to portray, to convey, as well, is that it's not going to take away or solve any of the pain.
Yes.
The pain is there for you to deal with, unfortunately. Yes. And, we all have our journey. Call me if you need some relationship advice. No, that's just a big joke. I'm not on top of that.
Why not? I mean, you have a lot of good points. So you've learned a lot.
I did. So my third marriage, when I'm like about 60, will be amazing. I'm just joking on there, but so I completely lost my track. So I'll let you take on the interview right now.
No, like it's true. It's true. I mean, you learned a lot. You've been through a lot. You've got, the kids, there were kids involved. There's matrimonial property. You're doing this podcast to help others. So I think there's a lot of value there. But you're right. Like, it's at the end of the day, what are you proving, or what are you gaining, or, what's the point of all of it?
Yeah. Because eventually you'll have to, make peace with it and move on. And that's probably in the latest stages, when you come to acceptance and forgiveness. Yes. And, some of us, it's like it's been years and we're not there yet. And some people get there very fast. And, we did call this podcast a black hole of divorce for a reason. It's just because there's nothing good out of it that you can go get besides learning a lesson. And if you don't at least go get the lesson that you were supposed to learn, you're just going to repeat your pattern over and over and over again. And that is one big thing why, I like mediation. I was going to say meditation, which is that's what you need, by the way. But
meditation is a lot quieter than mediation. Mediation can get loud.
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't go to a mediator the first time because we were on good speaking terms. But like I said, it's just also when you, like I'm repeating myself, but when you look at the law, there's not 52 ways to, play with it. Yeah. And, I don't have money in the Cayman Islands and all of this. So it's pretty simple. Yeah. But, what can you leave people with that are, I want to say, thinking about a divorce? And that too, it's like we could start a whole other podcast on that, of like when you start having these thoughts and all of that. And maybe I will, make a podcast on that as well, because I think there's ways to prevent and there's ways to heal from it and everything. But right now, like here, what could you leave people with, like if you start thinking about a divorce?
Yeah, so I'll just answer your question that I cut you off on earlier quickly, and then I'll answer this one because I feel like it really helps me to answer it. You asked me, like, are there any other services that we offer? Not yet, but I will soon start offering parenting plans or communication lessons, because that's so big. And if you're going to learn anything from your marriage/divorce, going to be how to communicate better. So I'm so passionate about that as well. And Sorry? Yes. Yeah. I think you can offer a lot of advice there. So there's a lot of different pieces that comes with it, and anything that I can to support people and to help them feel whole again and feel that they are worthy and they are great parents and they are great people, I will do. And to end, I wanna tell people I'm from Lebanon, and we have this saying in Lebanon. We say there's grapes everywhere in Lebanon. We're on the Mediterranean Sea, and so we say you can't eat the grape altogether at once. You have to eat the grapes one piece at a time, otherwise you'll choke. So what I want to say is divorce is overwhelming. Overwhelming is the least to say about what divorce feels and is. Your energy gets sucked out of it. You feel like you cannot think clearly. You're, all these different elements. Where am I going to live? What's going to happen if you have kids? They're the kids. My career, my relationship. Do I have to work again? I haven't worked in so many years. Who's going to pay the bills? How am I going to, what if I see him, on the street? All these different questions, right? So don't do this to yourself and try to think of it and solve it all at once. You can't. It's impossible. So just focus on one thing at a time, depending on what stage you're at. If you're at that beginning, like shock stage, don't think about any of this. Just think, okay, like, how do I deal with my emotions? Do I need a psychologist? Do I need a counselor? Do I need to talk to a friend, a sister? Then, maybe you're over that and you're like, okay, so I need to find out information. So then maybe you're researching specifically about money mindset or budgets or whatever the most imminent thing is for you. And if you have kids, don't worry about them all the time with everything that you think about, because they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay as long as you are there for them. Even if the other person is being a jerk, don't worry about it. Be the best parent you can be, and just try to understand things and get information and educate yourself, because the more that you do that, and the more that you're able to process things emotionally, the clearer your mind is going to be, and then you're going to be able to make good, solid decisions for yourself and your family.
Well, thank you for that. I love that. And that's actually how I live my life. It's one day at a time. And you need to go one step at a time. And yes, the first thing you need to do is heal yourself, because a lot of, we didn't talk about all the emotional part to that, but sometimes we're like a pure wreck, like not wanting to get out of bed. So let alone like calling someone. But, heal yourself, take care of yourself, and then your kids will be okay. And that's so true. I've gone through it, and I'm not saying my kids are like, yes, my mom is amazing at divorce. I'm just saying the way they lived it is, it wasn't as damaging as when my parents went through divorce, because it's all in the way that you talk about it to them and you portray it to them. It's the anger that you transfer on them. If you've been played, if you transfer that on them as well. There's so many things. I think my only advice, if I can give one, because I'm really, I'm just saying that like that, but it's to try your best not to share your feelings with your kids. Because especially in the first year, because you're talking about their parent. You're talking about the dad or the mother. And they don't deserve to adopt your feelings, because that's your perspective. For a kid, his or her parents will always be like everything. So don't drag them in there. And that's really my only advice. Like, spare the kids.
So true. That's so true. No, and it's hard, but you know what? If you love them and if you care for them, and I always remind parents to think of what kind of relationships they will have in the future based on what they see today. If you stay in a relationship because of the kids, to protect the kids, and you're fighting all the time, the kids are going to grow up and think this is normal, and they're going to go and find someone that they're going to fight with, all the time, and then they're going to leave them and then go find another one. So it's a vicious cycle. So think of that. Think exactly like you said. I think it's beautiful what you've done, and I think that making sure that you encourage the kids to speak to the other parent if they're living with you, or to have a good relationship with them, and to try to have that, and to not feel that it's their fault that this is happening. I think I've seen children of parents who have done that, who are now getting a divorce, and who say, my parents did that, and that really made a huge difference in my life, and now I understand why it's important. I want to do the same thing for my kids.
Yeah. And you know what, I'm just going to point out one last thing, because like I said, I feel like there's so much we can say on this subject. But you said, if you stay in your relationship for the kids, but you're always fighting. But let's also look at the flip side. Some couples are not fighting. And I'm the prime example. We don't fight. So the kids never saw us in a fight. But they don't see any closeness either. So they're learning a different type of relationship of like, you don't talk that much, you're not that close. So we taught them something else, which is not great either. But don't think because we're not fighting, everything is great. I think that ultimately what you want to teach your kids is that you are worth happiness.
Yes.
And that's what you need to go get. So staying in relationships when you shouldn't is not the greatest answer either. And I mean, there's no perfect answers, and I'm navigating them all.
Try everything.
Yeah. So my divorce when I'm 65 will be different, because there will be no kids involved. My point is our kids are learning from what they see, and not from what you tell them. And that is 100% true. I can see it in my adult kids now. And, so you are worth happiness. If you are in a situation that you need to get out of, if it's urgent, seek help. Not just a mediator, help. And you know what I mean? Like, there's tons of different resources out there. Not urgent, well, and you can keep it amicable. do it because it's going to be for the benefit of you and your family, whether there's kids or not. It's just the lawyers will make less money. Find someone like Zena who will, understand you and walk beside you as you go through it. The outcome will be better for you.
For sure. And
go ahead.
Just share I have a couple of resources, if I may share them. If people go to nolawyer.ca, not surprising, the link, nolawyer.ca, and there's a couple of really good resources on there. One is a conflict cheat sheet. It helps you say the right things and do the right things in a situation where you're in conflict with your spouse and you're not able to have an effective conversation. And the other one is a parenting checklist, and it if you're at a point where you're like, okay, we both want the divorce, and but the kids, what are we going to do? What decisions do we need to make? Then this checklist will help you by listing all the different decisions that needs to be made for the children. So it's a great resource, and they're both at the top of the page on nolawyer.ca.
That's amazing. And that's exactly what I was going to say. Do you have people can go? Zena, thank you so much. I will put all of your personal information as well as your company and the nolawyer.ca. I wish I would have known about that, because it would have been helpful. And, also those documents help you go step by step. So, the future is brighter. There's something else after divorce.
Yes.
Not sure yet.
Good things.
Good things out there. There's good people out there to help you as well go through it. So please don't go through it by yourself. And that's it. Zena, thank you so much for being on my podcast. It was fun having you, even if we had a depressing subject. To everyone who joined us, thank you so much for being here again this week, and I will see you next week.